Call the Economic Development Committee meeting to order. Please take the roll.
Calling the roll, Mr. Schron.
Here.
Mr. Hairston. Here. Mr. Tuma.
Here.
Ms. Baker. Here. Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent. We have a quorum, and I'd like the record to reflect that Mr. Miller is in attendance.
Great, thank you. Is there any public comment related to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair, no one has signed in.
Okay, thank you. And has everybody a chance to look at the minutes from the February 13th meeting? Yes. If the chair will then go ahead and move to accept the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and second. Is there any discussion relating to the minutes? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. If we could read the matter into the record, is that we have one resolution.
Resolution 2017-0031, making awards on requisition number 36437 to various providers in the total amount not to exceed $650,000 for environmental consulting services for the period 10/1/2016 through 9/30/2019, as printed on the agenda.
And is there someone here from Economic Development who's going to speak on this?
Yes, good afternoon. Ms. Waver, Department of Development. So what I would like to do, before we actually get into the guts of the contracts, so for the master contract, is tell you a little bit about Brownfield program. Sorry about that. I know that some of you know about the county's Brownfield program, but perhaps some of you don't.
We have some new people, so why don't you just start at the beginning, and
Yeah.
if you don't mind,
It'll be
is
brief.
that okay for you folks?
I'd like to hear
You
it.
might be up to speed, but I'm not going to assume it, so we'll just start from scratch.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The county's Brownfield program has been in existence for over 15 years. Primarily, we are completely funded by external funds. Today, we're going to talk about some monies from the US EPA. But in those 15 years, we started with a brownfield loan, a revolving loan fund that we still operate today. And then in about 2005, we were given another grant from US EPA, and that started our assessment program, which when we talk about the master contract in a little bit, that will be part of the assessment tier of our brownfield program. In those years, we've secured over $40 million in external funds from various sources: US EPA, Ohio EPA, Clean Ohio, HUD, the Betty Grant. And so with that $42 million, we have been able to award over 225 assessment and remediation grants throughout Cuyahoga County. That has resulted in over 4,000 acres that have been environmentally assessed. In addition to the assessment grants, we have provided over 60 actual loans for cleanup, and that has resulted in about 1,200 acres that have been remediated and cleaned. Now, in the county, all of our 59 communities are eligible to apply for these monies. However, primarily, the majority of our funds get spent on the inner ring suburbs and the urban core. Today, we'll be talking about the master contract. We have pending projects. We have approximately 8 that are ready to go once the contract is fully executed. We just this week alone have received a number of inquiries. When we had a large pot of money a number of years ago, we were doing as many as 30 assessments in a year, but we average between 12 and 15 annually. So the contract overview that we're going to discuss today, the contract's for $650,000. It is funded with 2 sources of money. $500,000 are directly from the US EPA. The other $150,000 is from our Brownfield revolving loan fund. We submitted a proposal and we asked for $650,000 and we're awarded $500,000. Over the years, the competition has been fierce and furious. There's less money available at the EPA, and the competition is great. Now, here's a fun fact. We, Cuyahoga County, we were the first brownfield program that was funded through US EPA dollars in the nation. So it was a number of years ago, but now the competition is much more challenging as well. So what I'd like to do is actually introduce you to the gal that runs our brownfield program, Janice Bain. I'd like Jan to come up. She is the liaison to EPA. She is the liaison to our contractors. She wrote the proposal that was funded, and she has been in the program for about 10 years. So she can give you a little more detail on the actual master contract.
Thank you, Judith. Just to add on to what Judith said, yes,
EPA monies are very hard to get. We were very, very fortunate to get several sets of EPA money. We were actually the first cooperative agreement that was awarded to a coalition back in 2009. We went through that money, and fortunately, we had other funds to keep the program going. A couple of years ago, we knew the need. Opportunity Corridor really had a big need. First ring suburbs had a really big need. And then also Cleveland and Euclid, the 185th corridor. We're getting all kinds of applications for that. So I wrote a grant specifically keyed to them, but also countywide, because it is awarded to the county on behalf of our coalition members. Other projects that come into us are eligible for that money. We have to go through kind of a stringent process with US EPA project by project. What we're here to discuss today is the master contract, which is part of the award. We needed to do an RFQ last year, which we did. We had 10 applicants, and we had our team, our coalition team, consist of us at the county, City of Cleveland, First Ring Suburbs, the Port, Cuyahoga County, Cleveland Port, actually our county health department, and the sewer district. So we have representation on our committee that looks at all the applications that come in. Everybody gives some feedback on it, and we score them on criteria based on leverage, how many jobs are created, how it's going to affect the environment, actually like schools and children and stuff like that. So we have a system that's been in place, again, as Judith said, over 15 years. That's worked pretty good. This time, we would like to, do this master contract to expedite the different projects. So we had 10 that applied, and these are our top 3 scoring applicants that are here today. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Yes, is there questions from anybody here? I know that Mr. Miller and I both served on the Clean Ohio Council maybe 100, 150 years ago, Dale? Was that when you and I were down there? So we do have some background, but those who don't, any questions? Yes, Ms. Baker?
At the State House, I also served on the Clean Ohio Council.
Oh, were you on there too? Oh, good. Okay, so good.
Got a quorum?
Yes. If I may ask, the other raising of, I can't remember the program, you're only brownfield, you do not do structures, you do not do, or am I wrong? Is it just vacant property that you?
No, we evaluate structures. Yeah, a lot of petroleum is a biggie, a lot of the chemicals of concern in the manufacturing business, TPHs, but also asbestos is included, as we had a conversation earlier. When they used asbestos back in the 40s and 50s, 60s, that's considered a chemical of concern. Case in point, the building next door. We've had quite a few sites that were loaded with asbestos, and again, people inhale it, and it's dangerous. So US EPA considers that a chemical of concern.
Isn't there a program also in place where, through the county, that we evaluate? And I know it's part of the funding was coming from some of the property tax excess and fees. Does that sound familiar?
No, the only, we started our brownfield redevelopment fund based on, I think the opposite of whatever the state was. The state was alcohol or cigarettes, and we were countywide, we were the opposite, one of those two.
Okay.
But we did use that fund for the cleanup purposes.
Thank you.
Any other? Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Bain, you mentioned that 10 applied and these 3 prevailed. Do we have any past relationships or dealings with these 3 consulting services?
Yes, since I got hired, I think in 2006 out of college, I believe all 3 of these firms were with us at that point. I've done probably a total of 4 or 5 rounds of RFQs, and maybe 1 has been missed, but most of them have been on our list. We've had from, I think, up to 15 on it before me to 7. Our last RFQ before this one, I think we took all 7 or 8. They all kind of qualified. Oh, I'm sorry, 7 out of 14, the last one, and these are 3 out of 10 So we have a scoring mechanism. Again, we can't spread the money too far because there's not that much money of it. But yeah, they have all worked really well. The evaluation that I put in, that these are our top, have been our top three. They're very responsive. If there's something they miss, they go back and do it. They're, they say what they're going to do. And
Sure. Thank you. And I've reached out to Director Carter in the past about some of the timetable of once the application is made and the award is granted until it's actually gone to the project is actually taken off. From work has begun on the remediation. Assessment is done, has been awarded for remediation. Bringing on these three, will that alleviate the time that is taking for the applications and to move through the process until the project has begin?
tremendously. With the process that we've had in place, where each individual project, we had to write an application, we had to write a contract individually with whoever the consultant was on our list. We knew that it would be probably an 8-week process from start to finish, but with the new on-base system, we've had contracts go into the system and they're in there for a couple months before we know they're coming out. So it's been, last couple months and last year has been pretty hard with the new system. Sure. This process is what most of the other grantees have used with the master contract. We've never used it before, but it's quicker. They're approved up front. We know what they need to do, and on each project, we will give them a task order. They will bid on a task order for the projects that are approved by our committee.
Sure, we've made the necessary adjustments so that once it's entered into the new system, that it won't take 2-3 months for it to work through after it's been approved?
Correct. That's why we're asking to do the master contract procedure.
Okay, just wanted to make sure this is just the same old contract, is that this was actually be a help to the process and that we will allow for these applications, once approved, to move along with the process quicker.
Yes, sir. Very, very, again, other people across the country that have been awarded this money have used this process and have effectively been able to get the projects done quicker.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Baker?
I now found the program, the County Land Bank. Are you involved or do you work with that program?
They're a separate entity. They actually have one of these grants. They got awarded. We got awarded in 15. They got awarded their second one in 16. This is our 4th or 5th one. Yes, we do work with them, especially on a lot of the projects. When it comes to the assessment piece, though, I mean, their structure, they have the same kind of money, but they can take one of these projects and turn it around the next day, where like it takes 6 months to, at the quickest, 3.
Other questions from anybody? Do you get involved with Buster or any of the fuel tanks or anything like that?
Yes.
So that, unlike, I believe Clean Ohio could not, I don't think they could touch Buster and fuel tanks, I don't believe, as I recall. Could they? Anybody remember where they? We always stayed away from gas stations and stuff like that. I don't think we. They were eligible. They were
Yeah.
under Clean Ohio?
If they were eligible, they could be apprenticed.
Okay.
Not eligible, so.
I'm sorry, unfortunately, we're not allowed to hear people from the back row. You're allowed to come up and tell us, but that's
No,
okay.
I'm looking back at them because of the projects I did with them.
Okay.
And I'm thinking I've done so many petroleum. The only difference is with US EPA money, and I think Ohio money too, we go through Buster. Buster is the one that gives us the eligibility because they control the tanks in the state of Ohio, or
Right.
the previous tanks in the state of Ohio. Whereas the hazardous substance materials, USCP has protocols pretty much across the country, but they've delegated the gasoline, petroleum products to, we have to make sure that these are not active sites or there's a responsible party. If they're active or the responsible party, we can't touch those gas stations.
Yeah, for some reason, I thought the initial Clean Ohio did not excluded those from the Clean Ohio fund as far as cleanup, and I didn't know if whether our fund did. And
Ours does not, as long as Buster says it's eligible,
okay,
we
all
can
right.
use the monies.
And then the master contract, as far as these 3 firms, how are they actually interfacing with the project? If you identify Project X 6 blocks from here, how does that individual master contract impact these three firms?
Each of the firms have a lot of experience. Our community is getting smaller. A lot of the projects, either if they've worked on it before, what we've done in the past is if they've worked on the project before, instead of having another company look at their work, we usually, if they're on our list, they're the ones that get to do the project. Like, say they did the phase one, the original environmental assessment, to say, yeah, there are some recognized or identified areas of concern. We usually go back to them to kind of save us some money from having to pay somebody to review their work. In this particular process, working with these three firms behind us, in the past couple of years, what we've done is we've kind of bid out between them. They've given us ideas on, what they said they will do if it's a hard project. Otherwise, we've kind of, other processes, we've gone 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, to be equitable and fair, because they're all very talented and they all have the experience to work on any site.
Okay, so if there's a particular site, they have some expertise, perhaps they can save us some money if they've already worked on it, but you indicated that prior years you had multiple different firms, which would mean that not these three firms would
These
not
were
have-
part of them,
They were
yes.
part of them as three, but they would not have been inclusive of all the firms. So some firms might have worked on a project, these firms might not have worked on them. How do you then identify which of these three gets picked? If 1, 2, 3 doesn't sound like a very good business way, to be honest.
no.
I'm sorry, but
They're all
that's kind of
three.
luck of the draw.
When it
It
comes
means
to
about- yeah.
no, when it comes to environmental, they all have the same resume. They all have the experience. They're different size firms, but they all have the experience in Ohio with brownfields.
And how do we compensate the firm that you're going to select? How do you?
They bid the task out. We tell them what needs to be done, and then they give us a proposal that shows the costs that it's going to be.
In a competitive manner between the three of them, or
pretty much.
How do we know that we're getting the best price for that particular project?
Good question. Again, this is just from my experience from doing this for so long. I've had a lot of experience with all three of them and bidding the project. So I have a pretty good background as to what certain things should cost. As part of the master contract, though, their prices are capped
Okay,
as far as their hours, their billable hours, and so that's all in the master contract.
so, but the billable rate is capped,
The
I
billable
assume,
rate.
but not the billable hours wouldn't be capped. I mean, you can't tell.
Right, the hours are dependent on the size of the project. And again, every project's different. We have from less than a quarter acre to 10, 15, 20 acres sites. So
How does the
obviously
taxpayer how do we protect the taxpayer to make sure that there's not just a friendly saying, "Hey, this one's yours and this one's mine and that one's."
that's-
I mean, that
No, it's-
it can happen when you have a very comfortable relationship, and it's not necessarily our desire as a in economic development to make things comfortable. It's to make sure that we're getting the maximum dollar value for the hours worked for the taxpayer.
Absolutely. I agree. I guess to say I am a taxpayer and that's how I look at things, so that's how I've always run the program. What do you need to do? My experience has been, I know now from all the projects that I've been involved in what things should cost up to this point, and kind of probably keep in perspective. We had maximums on different projects. On phase one's up to only $6,500.
Oh, okay, now you're.
Phase
so-
two's $35,000. Yeah.
So any cost overruns that would go over that, they would not be billing at the $6,500
Right.
for
We
phase one?
pretty much capped.
Oh, okay, well, that's
Yeah.
that's an easy way to keep dollars at least within the
Yes.
control of the master contract. I wasn't picking up that.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. It's a very big document, and it's a lot of stuff that we do, so. this
Okay,
was-
any other questions based on that? Okay, hearing none. Is there any exigencies, the passage of this piece of this resolution? Yes. It usually comes from the back row, the panic on that, okay.
Yes, we would like to ask that suspension of the rules on a second read.
Okay, and why would that be?
The sooner we can enter into the actual executed master contract, we have approximately 8 to 10 pending projects. And we are also under a tight timeline with EPA. So we have to start spending this money. We get checked. That actually looks towards our progress for our next round of funding of how quickly we actually expend the funds. So it would be beneficial the sooner we could get under contract with these other assessments.
When are the funds, what's the time sequence of the funds? When do they become available and when do they expire?
They actually are available now once the master contract is signed, and they, the entire pot, September of 19.
Okay, all right, and we're on timeline to get all those things done as far as whatever is on the,
As of today, yes.
all right, very good. Yes, Mr. Miller?
I attended a meeting a couple weeks ago with these fine ladies and the director and the executive office and Mayor Summers from the First Suburbs Consortium and we were talking about the extreme difficulty that we're getting in getting these projects moved along in the past we've done projects one at a time. The master contract here is going to be a big advance, but we're coming up close on a federal deadline to by which we have to at least have completed the first project, and so it is very important. We at that meeting we said that we had a strong belief that getting this legislation passed by council on the February 28th meeting was an important goal to help solve this problem. So I'm speaking to support what they told us about the urgency.
Very good, and the chair will move to have this approved and recommend to our leadership for a second reading, put it on the agenda. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded.
Appreciate it.
Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? At least it moved to the next level, and congratulations to the three gentlemen in the back. I don't know, did we get them introduced? I apologize.
We didn't, no.
Okay, if
Can
you
we?
would take the time to introduce them, Mrs. Bain?
Whatever order they want to come up in. All right, we have John Garvey from Partners Environmental, and Matt Connect, owner and from HCW Environmental, and we have Eric Wilburn from Hull and Associates.
Yep. And in all full disclosure, I had some business dealings in that 100 years ago when we did our brownfield over at the Collinwood Yard. So, yeah, so years ago. So I have no connection, no business, for full disclosure, with any of the three individuals there. And my only relationship was a project that was done 15, 18, 17 years ago. So with that, thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck. There is one other thing that we had a carryover from the last meeting. If everybody has their sheets from the last meeting, and you should have gotten an update with some numbers added to it that were at your chair. And did everybody also, I see at your chair, get the jobs and business loan activity out there also? Those both should have come to you. So with that, we'll proceed with whoever's going to talk on behalf of the Economic Development Department to fill in the blanks from the last meeting.
Well, good afternoon, members of the committee. Mr. Chairman, Ted Carter, Chief Economic Development Business Officer, Department of Development. So what you have before you is, let me start from the last page and go forward. On this document, which has numbers on it, it says Economic Development 2016 Business Loan Activity. The third page is the page that I read from that shows the year-to-year comparison. And actually, I think Ms. Baker asked us to go back to 2014, so we've added that column. So that shows you the loan activity, the job creation and job retention activity, as well as the total job impact, as well as the county investment, and then the investment that has leveraged in terms of capital investment across the county. The two preceding pages are just segmentation of 2016 activity, 2015 activity, and I think we've also have some summary data from our community development work across the county. And then we touched briefly on the second page, this new strategy and planning office, some of their successes from 2016. So let you digest that. The 8.5 by 14 sheet was a sheet that shows the crosswalk between the 5-year plan, which we've compressed down to 3-year components of that, and then the 1-year execution. Our partners for each of the program areas. In the program areas, what you all requested was to show current funding for each of those areas. Where there is no funding designated, that is a new area that I have proposed to the executive that as we build out the Office of Development, that we intend to stand up at some point and have funded. And primarily, those new areas would be staff positions. So modest investment, but one that we think will have significant return for the county. That's what you have in front of you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Yes, Mr. Harrison? Do you want to go, I mean, one of the things we had envisioned you were going to do is actually go through the numbers, the dollars that would work with them rather than having us start to dig. So if you can go through, I see you've got $1.6 million in the housing financing support. That's not what I showed from my notes from the previous meetings. Would anybody else showed? I show.
Which is the question I was getting ready to ask.
Yeah. Well, why don't you go through and then we can come back and ask the questions as to where these dollars came from, what do they relate to, and these are the dollars that are in the budgets, I assume, that what you're saying support these 10 items? Because I recall there were 10.
So I'm going to have Mr. Hurdick come up and talk about the housing, since he used to oversee this area, is intimately familiar.
Is that where you're going, Mr. Harrison? Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll put
Then I
them on
can
the
speak
record
to-
first, and then we can.
So, Mr. Hurdick, if you could just talk to the housing area, how those numbers were developed, because you can contextualize.
Yes, absolutely. Good afternoon. I'm Paul Hurdig with the Cuyahoga County Department of Development. I work for Ted Carter, currently in strategy and business intelligence. So just to give you the context of the way we've noted the budget figures here, the long sheet you have is essentially our department's 1-year and 3-year plan. We've identified a number of program areas where our department's carrying out activities. This was actually based on a planning process we did with Darrow, the county's innovation leader, worked with us over the past year. So in looking at each of these program areas, we've identified the current year budget available to carry out that work. So we can certainly supplement and we can certainly reconcile with other things you may be looking at. We'd be happy to do that work and get it back to you. But I want to just give a little note on how we derived the numbers that are before you today. What we did was work with each of the leaders of the program areas and talk with them and say, what is your current year's budget? So specifically in the example of the housing financing, working with Ken Surratt, we identified what was the likely amount of federal home program funding this year. And it's noted as estimated because unfortunately Congress has not yet passed the budget. There's been some disagreements going on in Washington. They haven't quite settled the budget, but our best estimate of the funding we'll have for this year, 2017, for the Home Investments Partnerships Program is $1.6 million.
Okay, what we did last week is we went through each one of these sections one at a time, and people were asking questions. So why don't we we'll just use that same format, so rather than go through all 10 and then have to come back to it, if people have questions about what was just said, that would be, I think, a good way to go about this. Any questions on the housing financing, the $1.6 million estimate out there from anybody?
On the 1-year action plan, it says continue to fund and operate current housing programs with adjustments based on county housing policy implementation. So just further elaborate on that for me. I understand what it means, but can you just contextually talk about that for me?
Certainly. Councilman, this relates to the work that Ken Surratt is leading in terms of continuing to work on the county's housing policy. He's been working on this for about 2 years now and is actually implementing some of the findings of that policy work. For example, the work to improve the way we do the real property tax collections, that's already underway. The reform of the sale of the delinquent taxes is underway. But as we expend the money that's available this year, Ken will be implementing his policy work in the way that the funding is applied to various options for housing programs we might carry out. He's issuing, for example, a request for qualifications that invites nonprofits and cities to propose the types of home repair programs they think are the most suitable, and then based on that, that'll allocate the money to home repairs in the way that best meets the policy. So.
Yeah, I assume that this meant to also roll out some new objectives and initiatives by continuing the ones that we've seen to work. How soon do we expect to see the initiative you just mentioned?
Ken has advised me that a request for qualifications is in the pipeline to be issued. It's in the Office of Procurement Diversity to be issued very shortly. And, we'll be out, as I've noted, to all the 51 cities where we can spend the federal money, as well as it would be open to nonprofits that wish to submit proposals. But that's coming out this spring.
Is estimated $1.6 million.
This is the home, and what I wanted to mention is that the other federal resource, the Community Development Block Grant, is mentioned. It's simply on the other side of the page. So I didn't want to give an incomplete picture. Those are the two main federal grants.
Okay,
So
I see it
that-
on the backside.
So both are estimated at what we expect we'll get for 2017.
Okay. Mr. Chair.
Other questions? Okay, so this program is something that's been around for a while?
Yes, sir. We've been receiving both the federal home program and the Community Development Block Grant for many years. Home started in 1993, and block grant goes back to the Nixon administration, actually.
And has Ken been involved with this in the prior years then too?
Yes, since becoming the county's housing leader about 2 years ago, he's been not only doing the policy work, but also managing the programs.
And this is a financing program?
Well, briefly stated, a number of options. One is loans to homeowners, the familiar housing rehabilitation loan program we've been running for many years. But through this RFQ process, we'll be looking at having actual grant funding where repairs are paid for on a grant basis. Some of the funding also is used for loans to developers to produce affordable rental housing. Again, a fairly well-established use of the federal home program dollars, where we're one of several funders contributing to a larger project.
Okay, so on the loan side, that's Ken's been responsible for that, or somebody prior to that, if Ken's been doing this for 2 years?
Currently managing our housing loans, yes, sir.
Okay, so somebody who was managing the loans prior to Ken also, I assume? Okay, all right, so we've got accountability of at least the two of you. What is the, so you would have prepared the budgets prior to that time, and Ken prepared this $1.6 million estimate?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And it's a formula allocation. This is not competitive. This is actually set by a formula based on congressional action.
And we get paid back by the homeowner then for these?
It's going a little bit into the weeds, sir, but the homeowner
I intend
loans
to
are
get
made
into the weeds,
on a
sorry.
deferred basis. So typically, the homeowner will pay us only when they move from the home or it eventually passes through their estate, which is a polite way of saying upon their death.
Right. No,
Because the
I get
homeowners
that.
we assist are low income, and we're generally not charging a monthly payment.
Okay, so someplace along the way, we have a record of all the homes that we've loaned money to, and we've got that on record as far as what, and then we've got a history of if somebody has passed away or sold their home, that we come back and collect our monies.
Yes.
Okay, all right, and how big is that, what's the size of that pot right now?
The portfolio of loans is on the order of 1,000 loans, and, typically around $15,000. It's a $15 million portfolio, approximately.
$15 million is owed to the county in some form or another that we're going to recover at the sale of the home or upon death of the homeowner.
That's the typical event, yes, sir.
Okay, can you provide that to us so we can, I want to get all this information so that we can be knowing it on the economic development side too. And so whatever spreadsheet, whatever background that you and Ken have used to support that, and a whole loan proposal on that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Real quick. Some of the information Ken had begun to work on, because we requested it through Community Development Committee also, to help loan program that information. But I do have one question. Are we keeping track of that ourselves, or are we relying on the banks to keep track of that, or do they keep track and then let us know?
The servicing of the housing loans is entirely in-house.
Yeah, okay.
We actually had to take part of the portfolio back about 2 years ago because we had an outside bank, which I'm not going to name on the record, that was doing a terrible job. We had to take it back.
Sure. And the partners that we've been working with for the past, since 2013, are those the same partners, or those partners have changed in terms of the banks?
Again, sir, we've not used an outside bank for servicing since
You have that,
2013.
okay.
But in the help loan program, the banks are Key Bank, PNC, and First Federal Lakewood. Key Bank has been our strongest partner over the years.
Okay. Understood, thanks.
Okay, but we have, if we got 1,000 loans, then we should have some place with a portfolio with a registration and a record of payments and pay downs, and I assume we've got a security interest that's on with the county recorder's office?
Mortgages are filed, and we use a computerized database.
Okay, all right, just if you can make sure we get all that information, that'd be great.
Oh, and it's called One Roof, sir. The program we use is called One Roof.
Okay,
And- Yes, sir.
so just give us a summary of where we are, what's our conditions, so that if we're talking $15 million, this is obviously something that, as we start to look at budgets and things like that, we're gonna be looking at every penny coming through as we go forward.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just add one thing. Just Paul and Ken are really the experts in this area. And so it is an area that has been reviewed pretty rigorously by the federal government, so it's been audited to a significant extent. And as part of the E&Y loan portfolio review that we've talked about, they're gonna sample a couple of the loans on this side of the house. Their primary focus is on the ED side, but because this is so rigorously audited by HUD, and so we have a staff here that's very well-versed in HUD guidelines and regulation, this probably has had more rigor, to be honest with you, than the ED side, so that's why we focus.
That's good, and the nice thing about that is that it's, I read this book one time about 99 sheep, and one was out of the pen. We won't spend a lot of time worrying about the 99 if there's only, if this falls into that category, and we'll just worry about the one that's outside the pen out there, and so.
That was one point I was gonna make. There was,
Should we move on to the next one, or?
We talked about One Roof, we talked about the audit. Let me see my notes here as he was talking. No, I think those are 2 points I wanted to make.
Okay, that's great. The next item was the workforce, I think.
If I may,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I actually
Sure,
wanted to
Paul.
flip back to the first side and just kind of, if I might just kind of walk down, again, as you've indicated, inviting questions as we go. Just want to note in terms of the Economic Development Lending Program, the two numbers indicated there, the $12.5 million is the amount available to the Department of Development under the County Budget Authority for the year 2017. In addition to that, there's a revolving fund which has a current balance available of about $4.1 million. So those are the two sources the department has when it recommends loans for approval, either to the Board of Control or to the council. And that's the extent of the authority we have to do our lending for the current year.
Okay, let's stay where you are, then let's stay on the Economic Development Lending Program, and let's dig into that. Yes, Mr. Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so you mentioned that is the pool that ED department pulls from to make lending. Is there a restriction on the types of projects that can be lent from that pool?
Yes, sir. And this committee has seen the department's description of the types of lending programs that operates. Councilman Tron will recall this was the 11 verticals that were brought forward to the committee. So that has been rather thoroughly described to the committee, the types of loans that will be
recall.
recommended.
Okay.
I think if you look in.
I recall now.
It's in one of our charts.
Yeah, I remember.
In the five-year plan, but it's been reduced down. We've taken a few out, added a few in.
And as I recall, I believe there was some deletions and
were.
some
There's some little
and
tweaks.
some tweaks to that.
Yep, yeah, our first plan was like first year after we got started up. Yes, Mr. Miller?
I have a question about the revolving fund. the $4.1 million, does that consist of a current balance in the fund, or does it consist of the amount of repayments we're going to receive during 2017, or is it some of both, and if so, how much of both?
Well, I'm going to defer to OBM because they're really the custodians to give you a precise answer. But this is the current balance, and then there's a projected recurring repayment of previously lent monies of just over $1 million a year. But I would defer to OPM to give you that exact.
Okay, so you're saying the current balance is 4.1, and in addition, we should get about $1 million. So actually, you have 17.6 or so million.
I'm going to, again, Mr. Miller, I just would defer to OBM of how they treat that money, because what we think is straightforward, it's not always what it seems. But this is what, based on our books that we have in this revolving loan fund.
Thank you.
Yes, Mrs. Baker?
Thank you. I do remember from our last meeting, we talked about the small business loans, and we talked about the SBA loans. So in your partner list, how does that work with the funding when you're working with, say, SBA? Is there a percentage? I mean, how does your 12.5 million or your 4.1 million work with the SBA part of?
Good question. The SBA Muni program, there was the county put in several $1 million to underwrite that program in a previous year.
Okay.
They've now come back and asked for a renewal of that program because they want to expand it to other inner ring suburbs.
Okay.
So this is this program where the county is essentially providing the equity for small businesses. It's matched by in the form of a grant. It's matched by the municipality. Then the SBA does the traditional underwriting for the balance of the loan.
So that's good to hear. So just so I'm clear, is that where, do you take some of the funds from the 12.5 or the 4.1 to, work with those bodies of other funding?
Should we decide to renew the program, the initial program only occurred in Shaker Heights and Cleveland. They've now come back for a request to expand it. So as we prepare for the next budget cycle, we're trying to determine whether we should fund the full thing this year, and the full amount off the top of my head is over $1 million, or kind of split it in half. And so if we were to do that for the next budget cycle, would come out of this line is the way to think about it, not necessarily that pot because we have obligations against it. So this is kind of a rolling number here that's presented.
Thank you.
Just so we can dig into this now, some of these numbers, who had the responsibility to create these numbers? The budget and the revolving fund?
Councilman, the budget is what was determined through the county's budget process, for this year. So that was
Submitted a
ultimately-
request for that.
Right, working with the administration's budget, then whatever adjustments council made. So this is the final figure council had approved for year 17.
So it took somebody's recommendation to put that number and ultimately approve it. Who did the number calculation to put that on the paper to submit it for the budget process?
Yeah. This particular
As your
budget,
need.
we have proceeded in my arrival, Mr. Chairman, so.
No, I'm not trying to say you.
No,
Yeah.
I just, obviously the Office of Budget and Management, and then an executive staff. I know there's a lot of comment. Chris that left the budget, the work. Glassburn played a key role in development of the county's overall budget, but I know he had a.
But I can only assume he relied on somebody in economic development to say, what do you think you need? I mean, Chris Glassburn's job was to ask you, and then somebody's job was to dig into it. I'm just trying to understand why these numbers are on the piece of paper, and then we're going to go into what was done with those numbers. Because we were given a sheet that said that there were 49 loans in 16 and 44 loans in 15, and a total outstanding investment of 16.6 and 6.6 in the respective years. And so I'm just trying to get, who makes, I mean, somebody's got to be making a business decision, somebody's got to be deciding these are numbers, somebody's got to make these loans go forward, somebody's got to monitor these loans, somebody's got to make sure the loans are in good shape, they were getting repaid, all those things that Mr. Miller opened with at the last meeting as to what's the status of the repayment history. So you gave us this information at this meeting that we sat down with, and I'm just trying to dig into, ultimately, somebody had to prepare these numbers.
Right. So, sir, in terms of counting up the numbers, the information that Ted has was prepared, aggregating both the economic development lending we do ourselves, that's directly from the county. In addition, we have some of the partners we work with who make loans partially subsidized by Cuyahoga County, in some cases leveraging the money we invest with them to make larger amounts of lending. So that what we presented to you for 2015 and 2016 is counting up both the direct lending done from our office and the loans made by our partners with our leveraged funds investing and
Now,
supporting this.
I understand you have got two numbers on here. You have
Yes.
a county investment and a leverage number, which I understand
Right.
that you're hoping to get a multiple.
Right.
The county has loaned $16.6 million, it looks like, or done something, either in a loan or a grant.
Yes, sir. And that includes the funds, for example, we recently entered into agreement with Jumpstart, under which the county provided $2 million to Jumpstart. Jumpstart, in turn, is using that as a base to make additional loans to small businesses. Another example would be Cuyahoga County has invested a certain amount of money with the Grow America Fund, which is run by the National Development Council. Contract was approved by this body, and that has a 3-for-1 return where there's $3 of other money lent for every $1 of county money that's lent. So in this way, we're able to have more lending than the straight amount of county money that's spent in some cases.
So somebody calculated and created loan documents for us, for the county.
Yes, sir.
And who was it?
So typically, our law department is the lawyer that represents the county on each of the transactions where the county is lending the money directly. We use various attorneys. It's sometimes Lisa Averyhart, but others in the law department.
Okay, that's the Ts and Cs of the document. Who actually did the business piece of it for economic development?
That's
Who-
our staff. That would be Judith Wayburn, who supervises Michael May, and then our loan officers that work for Michael May. Whenever the county is doing the direct lending, Arnold Lockett, who you often see before you. We have other loan officers from time to time.
So we'll have I mean, like, if I was a bank, I'd have a loan portfolio, and my loan portfolio would show me who's paying me, what's the payment history, what they owe me, what my interest rates is, and all that, and all that's being, I think that
That's all
falls,
being reviewed as part of the E&Y review, Mr. Strong.
but that falls within the Economic
Economic
Development
Development,
Department.
yes.
That should be a system that we have in place.
Yes.
And I would like to see what that system looks like, get some information and feedback on that, because it also says that we've created these jobs. I'd like to see, there's somebody, who, for example, somebody has got, there was 1,030 jobs created. Where is the support for that?
Right. So what I can say, sir, and again, this is computerized. The name of the computer system we use for this is actually called Portful, as in portfolio. But staff do the verification of the job creation every year by once a year requesting written information from each company. The company needs to submit payroll information, which is verified by our staff to confirm the actual number of new jobs that were in fact created.
So we actually go out and audit that company?
That whether it's a site visit or it's a paper review, in either event, there's some monitoring activity for each and every loan to confirm the number of jobs.
So every one of these jobs would have a tick sheet someplace where company A had 5 and they promised 5 and they did 5, and this and
Yes.
company B. So someplace you got individual sheets where somebody's gone out and done this?
Yes, sir, annual monitoring files on each
So
one.
somebody has all that,
Yes.
and then that will map up with the loans.
Yes.
Okay, and I'd just like to dig into this because how much money do you think we have outstanding in our portfolio right now from the county on a loan?
I can't, off the top of my head, Mr. Strong.
I mean, just give me a rough range.
Yeah.
10,000,
I could tell you.
10 million, 50 million, 100 million?
Well, if you combine the number that has been reported to me, when you combine the housing and the ED is 46 million. I'd say the ED side, probably south of 20 million, 15 to 20 million. And that would be a guess on my part of just.
Okay, so we have a portfolio that would show 15 to 20 million someplace that we can track back, who's paying us, what the payment history is. And part of the reason why this came up is obviously, we've just gotten a recent communication about waiver of payments to one of our loans out there. Last year, we got a loan that went south on us. And I understand that some are gonna go that way, but I would like to know what that portfolio looks like, the 40-some million dollars that's out there, and the 15 to 25 million. I'd like to know what that portfolio, you add all that up, as Everett Dirksen used to say, $1 million here and $1 million there. Pretty soon you're talking real money, and this is a lot of money that we have outstanding, and it's the job of this committee, I think, to at least ask these tough questions out there. I
Mr.
know
Schwan,
that.
I know you're spot on, and so no objection to the questions, either in tone or the depth of them. But what I have shared at BOC with some members of the committee, as we put forward the justification for the Ernst & Young review, is that this is an area that has been identified as an area of need and lack of investment by the Inspector General. Ernst & Young is doing a review looking at compliance, loan servicing, and how we manage the loan portfolio in its totality. And so it's something that needs to be improved upon. And so some of these questions that you're answering are, there are data deficits, and there's just systems deficits around record keeping. So we're going to improve.
You have the
it.
nice luxury of being able to say that I am fairly new to this job, and so you have the ability to say that you're going to improve it, and it was maybe the reflection of our predecessor, but now is the time to.
I own it, Mr. Chairman. I don't.
Well, you own it now.
I don't take that view.
I'm not going to blame you with anything that took place prior to your coming on board.
We all come at a moment in time, and so my job, when I was hired, is to make it better. I would say we have infrastructure deficits that we're trying to correct. The Ernst & Young report will be complete sometime in the next 60 days. In fact, I don't think they've interviewed anyone on this committee, so that might not be. I thought we had, anyway.
I have not been interviewed. I don't know if any members of the committee have been interviewed.
Okay, so.
Let's just push it. If you're talking Ernst & Young, that's probably a friendly force. How about the state auditor? Where are they in regards to any of this? Any of this?
To my knowledge.
Any of this risen to his or?
To my knowledge, the team that has really been most aggressive and has dug into this most deeply is the county's Inspector General. And so I can't speak to the state auditor. I have not. They haven't talked to me. I haven't really seen any interest on their part.
And I'm not trying to encourage them to, by the way. I just didn't know whether it kicked out on.
Yeah. So I don't. Again, the questions are relevant and appropriate. So.
As far as all of the tick sheets showing jobs created and jobs retained, I think that what we do here in this committee is we hear about those jobs, we hear about the expectation. I think it is appropriate for us to get a detailed breakdown of to where they are, because we're going back to our constituents saying, hey, there was 1,300 jobs created this last year, 1,250 jobs retained. I'd like to make sure that we can see that, so when somebody asks us, show that was the case. And just as an FYI, I think the numbers on here, it says 16.6 million county investment and a 6.6 million county investment for a total investment of 22.8. I think the math on that should be 23.2. So it's off by what looks to be $400,000 at least on that, and it could be just somebody just moved the number back because my simple math says 6 and 6 equals a 2, not an 8. So let's keep on going. We moved back over to economic development. We can keep going back and forth on our 10 points, but I'd love to make sure we get all 10 finished. We just had some folks talking about the brownfield, so do you want to pick up on that and just keep on going down through? And when we have these budget areas on this, like the budget, like the revolving fund, I'd like to make sure we have whoever it was that calculated the jobs. That person, if somebody calculated 100 of those jobs, great. Somebody else calculated 200 of those jobs, great. Somebody else calculated 500 of those jobs. Whoever it was that did that, so we've got some accountability back to whoever that contract officer was in here.
Okay, since Ms. Wayburn's back, I'm gonna have her talk about the brownfield assessment.
Okay?
Did I catch Lee?
Pardon?
I was telling my director, I was previously scheduled to
just going
depart
through
for a
this.
business trip.
Oh, you still can. Oh, that,
Here shortly.
oh, you mean right in a few minutes? Oh, okay. All right. Do you need to get out of here to catch an airplane? Okay, well, don't let any of our questions slow you down from that standpoint. I guarantee you, we're not going to resolve this tonight.
Hello.
Yes. Hello again. Yes, good to see you again.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a $1.7 million EPA, it says grants and revolving fund of 1.1 million, a brownfield assessment and cleanup. Where did those come from? And who came up with those numbers and the budgets and the forecast?
The revolving loan fund is actually just a little over 1.1. It's just 1.17. It is funds that you can find in Famous. So if you look in the Famous report of the cities, it shows our remaining balance. So those are funds that over the years we have depleted and gotten additional awards. So those are US EPA dollars that we revolve, and the money coming back goes back into that fund.
Okay, these are almost all grants then?
Yes.
These are not going to be loans? I mean, the Clean Ohio Fund, we had some loans, but these look, at least the way I'm interpreting this?
We actually do loan out money as well.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Primarily to entities that are for-profit. Our grants go to government, municipalities, and not-for-profit, but we do loans to for-profit. An example is the Flats. We just recently did some for East 69th Hotel. That was just very recently that went through Border Control. So we do loans.
Okay. Questions on this section before actually, I guess I asked some questions there myself, though. I try to avoid that. Yes, ma'am.
From my previous question, I don't see as a partner the County Land Bank. Is that because they're just not as relevant as the other partners that you have listed there, or? It just seems that they do much of what it is that you do, and they seem to have a pretty healthy amount of funding.
You're true, they're a partner in the sense we don't actually utilize their money, though, where these other sources, we actually get money from them or utilize those for the land bank, that they utilize their own funds. We have partnered with them. Actually, right now, we're still working on an assessment in Richmond Heights, and we both have involvement and both have funds in there.
And while you brought that up, where is that project? How's that coming?
Oh, my goodness, isn't that a slow dog?
It really
It has
is.
been going on for a long, long time. It's moving, but there's been many, many difficulties. And it's an old gas station site.
Yeah.
And the tanks and removals, and it's moving, albeit at a turtle's pace.
Spring,
It's
summer.
still there. I can't answer that, I'm sorry. I just don't know.
Sure.
Actually, and only a comment because I have some familiarity with brownfields, that those were delivery dates back in those days, spring, fall, 2 years from now for brownfields. And they told me we won the Patience Award because of how long it takes for that process to go through.
Things happen that
unfortunately.
you just
Yeah.
aren't planning for, and, you find other chemicals that,
So I just thought I would ask,
Yeah,
because I know
it's
that's been.
around forever.
It's been around forever.
It's
It's been
still alive.
ongoing.
It's still breathing.
Okay.
To Ms. Baker's point, though, I understand that you're saying these partners are people to which you receive funds. It doesn't look like we have a common definition of partners then, because some of these other ones, I don't think we receive funds from GCP. I don't think we receive funds from Team NEO.
That's correct, you're right. But
So I'm just want to make sure, when you, I don't mean to be picayune, but when you start talking about definitions, I like to be consistent. So partners doesn't mean partners as you're defining it. It sounds like in some definitions. So what we ought to do is make sure we have clarity. So if you could tell us on this, Mr. Carter, where do we have, I guess, financial partners that we receive money from? And we don't do it right now.
Yep.
Where do we have people that we give money to? Because I think it's the other way around. Jumpstart gets our money. We don't get their money. Where the money is going on an outflow basis. And then where is it I assume GCP is a cheerleader there as opposed to being, they don't take our money, we don't give them money, and they're bringing us hopefully contacts and things of that nature to close transactions and things that would fall into that category. So I think that, let's have clarity as far as going down through the thing. Would that help you, Ms. Baker? Because I think that you raised a point that these are people that have actually given us money. I bet there aren't a whole lot of them on there that we get money ourselves from out there.
Okay, so as we go through the rest of the sheet, I'll try to identify.
You don't have to do it now. Tell you, why don't we, that's an after-action activity, as we used to say in the Army. So with that, just come back with us and give us another column that says, or just mark it, we can probably mark it with some kind of a legend on there that says, this is a lender, this is a borrower, this is an economic partner who helps cheerlead us on projects out there. Would that help the committee? Yes.
And that list then could possibly grow. You might
Sure.
think of others that aren't funding, but like with the county land bank, are participatory.
Correct.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, and it just helps with understanding the big picture, what's going on and how we work with these individuals moving forward.
Right, because I think it brings clarity to the word partner out there. Somebody gives me money, I consider them my lender. And I have a whole different relationship with my bank than I do with somebody that I'm giving money to. The anxiety level goes up quite a bit higher on the borrowing side. Getting back to your loans, I don't see that listed here. I see grants and I see revolving fund. Is there a loan pool that we can identify? How much is out there in brownfield loans at this point?
Available funds?
No. You said we have grants.
Yep.
And you also said we loan money
That's
to some
correct.
projects like a for-profit business.
Yes.
Where does that show up on our spreadsheet here?
The money that has been lent is not reflective on the sheet.
Okay, if we
But
can get
can
a
we-
total, whatever that is, what those loans look like, who they are, what's their current status, are they paid on time, are they delinquent? And again, I hate to say it, but we got a letter just a couple weeks ago about an institution that we had done deferral on their loan and extended it. So I'd like to know what we look like on all of our loan portfolio.
Got it.
Thanks. Any other questions on the brownfield? Moving along. Business engagement, there were no funds, and so that's one that we don't need
So
to.
this is a new area.
Yep. We
The
don't,
next two areas are really new areas that we will build out. And part of, as I was onboarding, and I met with business community stakeholders and leaders from across the county, one of the things they talked about in terms of expectations of the county, this office, myself, is that they wanted to see more presence in the marketplace and more proactive engagement with the business community. So this also reflects some of the findings in the regional economic development report that was done a year or two back. And so the vision here is to have an ombudsman that the county executive has already talked about, and then there'd be a small team that would work in concert with Team Neo, Jobs Ohio, and GCP in terms of marketing the county regionally, but also engaging our local businesses. So as we talked about in the last.
yeah, you covered both these
Yeah,
last time.
yeah,
There's
okay.
no money associated with
No
them at this
money,
point. These are our visionary items.
Yeah.
I don't know that we need to
Okay.
focus on them, but the next one is community development, where you
think
do
Paul
have
has,
money allocated on this list.
Yep, covered that, yep. Oh, no, we only talked
And
about that.
again, I do apologize to the committee. I do have a previously scheduled, have to catch a plane.
No,
quite
no,
frankly.
we-
So I have a few more minutes and I want to be as helpful as I
Yeah.
can, and I will certainly come
Why don't you
back
touch
when I
every
go
one of the
through
ones
some-
that you're
Right.
on these 10 buckets that you touch, and then we'll say hasta la vista, wish you a happy
Thank you,
trip,
sir.
bon voyage.
Community development and housing, again, Ken Surratt manages this now, but I used to manage this until Ken came in, so I'm pretty familiar with this. In community development, what we've indicated is the amount available from the demolition fund this year And Ken has helped me with that calculation by looking at what's been authorized in the various budgets, what has already been committed to the cities, what's still available. So that figure 15.5 is what's going to be available to make awards this year.
Okay, so therefore we have last year's available.
Yes, and certainly, again, there's a database, we can easily run a report from that database, which is not a problem. I know also Councilman Harrison's committee also does some oversight on that, so we can easily produce reports on the status of the
Great.
demolition.
And just to jump in, Mr. Chairman, at the last committee meeting, Ken Surratt did provide us with an update of what has been expended, what is currently authorized but not gone out, and what is currently left for us to expend.
And do we use the same formula that says if it's going to a for-profit commercial organization, that would be in the form of a loan versus a grant?
It's actually set by ordinance passed by this body.
Right.
All of the awards are made to cities. There are
Okay.
no other ways awards are made.
All right, so those will be in the form of a loan or a grant.
And cities had the option to apply for loan, but none of them did. So it's
Wow.
all grant awards.
Okay, so and do they get a higher score if they apply for a loan versus a grant?
The legislation doesn't provide for that.
Oh,
It's-
well, the legislation doesn't provide for any scoring, I don't believe.
No, sir.
So why, you could score it differently, because I know that Clean Ohio Fund clearly scored higher for somebody who was borrowing our money and repaying it versus somebody who wanted a grant of Clean Ohio, of demolition money in Brownfield.
As it stands, sir, the legislation basically says yes or no, is it eligible or not? And if it's eligible, we're pretty much mandated to make the award of the funds.
Well, I think we ought to take a look at that legislation. I mean, we only have so many dollars to go around, and if we could get some of it to be repaid, why wouldn't we want to get it repaid? If you're going to ask me, would I prefer a grant if I'm a community, the answer is yes. But that doesn't strike me as being good fiduciaries of the taxpayers' money to automatically give a grant to every. I mean, Clean Ohio Fund operated pretty effectively for how many years? Was it 15 years, 18 years? Yeah, and it scored higher for a loan from a community versus a community that wanted the grant, because there's only X amount of dollars to go around. Okay, casino revenue.
This simply indicates the so-called Community Development Supplemental Grant Program, which council authorized for the current year. So that's the $1 million that council allocated to that program.
And that has all been utilized at this point in time, it looks like, or it's been allocated?
The recommended awards are under final review, and we expect that legislation to be introduced very shortly.
Okay, and one of the things I noticed in your narrative, or at least some comments, is that this is a tremendous amount of energy that's taking away from your department to do this, or?
To be precise, sir, in the budget discussion this year, there was proposal which was approved to simply recognize the cost of the staff time to administer this program. So council, in its budget adjustment for 17, did allocate the money needed to properly staff this program.
So is it coming out of the 1 million, or is it in addition to the 1 million?
Addition to.
All right. Send that note down to Mr. Greenspan. So, yes.
Follow-up question, how much money to administer the program?
This was in the order, the staff time, 37,000. Ken's here.
It was a small amount. It wasn't a great
not-
amount.
Ken Surratt from Community Development. There was $39,000 that was budgeted for staff time related to the CDSG. One of the reasons too is that many of the staff that work on CDSG also work on projects funded by CDBG. So this was a way to cover their time that they couldn't be allocated to the CDBG funding. So it was partially done, and not just to cover the amount of time, but because they were funded by a different funding stream.
Okay, well, that's 4%, that's acceptable.
Yeah, so, and Mr. Surratt, seeing how you grabbed the mic, which is always a risky thing out there, but it looks as though, when I looked at the list, the majority are all awarded to the maximum $50,000. So I can only assume that the community just asked for the full amount, and we awarded it?
I know that we've made recommendations to council. I'm not sure that what's been decided yet.
No, it hasn't been
at
decided, but it
council.
looked, based on what I
I
saw.
would say most of the applications came in at $50,000 or more, but there were a handful that were definitely under that amount.
Yeah, but it looked as though the high percentage, 85, 90% were all at the max.
Well, and if you look at what it is, I think the reason for that is that many of the projects were the total cost exceeded the $50,000. So they're just trying to maximize the public contribution.
Okay. And are you involved with the HUD funding, the 3.2 million on here?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
as long as we got you up there. It says estimate.
Yes, because we have not gotten the federal appropriation yet. It's been fairly consistent over the past few years at about a little over $3 million. But until the federal budget is finalized, we don't know what the exact amount will be.
Any questions in regards to any of these? Yes, Ms. Baker?
I see you do have the County Land Bank listed as one of your partners. So is the County Land Bank, is that a significant funding partner? Or is that just a partner that is cooperative?
You're talking about just for the whole community development block here? I
Yeah,
just wanna
probably the
clarify.
demolition fund, I would think.
For demolition, definitely is in the legislation. The county land bank gets awarded up to $3 million per year for 3 years. So that
Okay.
is that's the direct funding. But in addition to that, cities have the opportunity to use the land bank to do the actual demolition work for them and kind of administer the program.
Thanks, Paul.
As
Sorry.
you're aware, many of the municipalities don't have the staffing or expertise that the county land bank does, so they will contract with the county land bank to actually perform the demolition.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I assume that all of the HUD 3.2 that you're anticipating is going to be in the form of grants?
We do loans out of this as well. So as part of our an example would be our home repair lending. We usually allocate a few $100,000 to low-income homeowners to do home repairs to keep their properties up. And they're usually in the form of deferred loans. So we tend to get paid back when the property transfers.
We tend to get paid back. I'm not sure I understand what the word tend to
Well,
means.
unfortunately, due to foreclosure, there's also a chance that we may not the money does not come back if the lien gets extinguished.
Okay,
through
so we have a
foreclosure.
loan portfolio that we can track, or we can at least identify what's outstanding on these loans?
We do.
Okay, and so we can tell whether we're current, not current, what we've written off, what the status is.
Again, most of these are deferred, so there's no payments on them whatsoever until the actual property transfers. We just have a lien on them. But we do have a complete listing of that, as well as any of that have gone through the foreclosure process where we've received no proceeds.
Okay, if you can just give us access to that too, just because it's all part of the loans the outstanding monies that are receivables potentially to the county at some point.
Right.
Appreciate it, thanks. And we only had, I think, only one other one that had money associated with it, and that was the workforce. I don't know if that's your area, I didn't think so, but.
So this we talked about last time, Mr. Chairman, which is a $6 million budgeted for the current budget cycle for the expenditure of workforce for our upskilling program and the development of a workforce system that the county will lead. And so there's two components of it that, from an expenditure standpoint, the primary one being, as David Feinerman is developing his budget, based on this budget for the upskilling program, which is a reimbursement of creating career pathways and job and wage pathways for employers. So we're in the process of marketing that program, and so we have a team of talent advisors who you met last week who will support businesses in developing training programs to onboard and upskill employees.
And do we have a target as far as jobs that this is going to impact?
Yeah, off the top of my head, the number that we're targeting of employees to train and upskill is 900. There's a component of that is related to our population, clients on public assistance, and then the others are employees from across the county that would be non-public assistance. So there's two dimensions of it.
Okay, if the director of the workforce program can just give us the background as to how he built that model and what the model consists of and his worksheets and spreadsheets and things like that as to how it was built, that'd be great. Questions on the workforce area?
Okay, well, excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just would want to rewind. So he can give you the model of how he
Yeah, how he built
intends
it.
to spend the money. The $6 million
Absolutely.
was somehow authorized and appropriated by council. So I'm not sure how that number was arrived at in the budget discussions last or the year before last now.
Well, someplace somebody has crunched the number and said, we need X amount of dollars, and in this particular case, it came out to 6 million, and it was to do something.
Right. So that's what I'm trying to create a distinction. This program didn't exist when the money was appropriated, and so the program has been in the process of being created. So and we can share with you is how we intend to spend the money and how the budget that's being presented against that. But this was appropriated and negotiated with the county executive and the council determined that this was an amount of money that made sense for this new workforce initiative. So I just want to be clear on what you'll get from
Okay,
us
well,
at this point.
I assume that you say you now have a program document that's gonna direct what you're gonna do, and that program document has goals and objectives. With that goal and objective, I would like to see because ultimately it's gonna show up on a sheet next year or the year afterwards. It's gonna say jobs created, jobs retained, as a result of this program, so I hope.
Okay,
And-
slightly
and-
different twist, right? It'll say upskilled.
whatever the measuring stick is, somebody has written down an assumption as to what it is. And so next year, when we spend $6 million, I'd like to see how that assumption materializes in an actual result.
Roger.
I had the luxury of hearing Mr. Cosgrove talk about what's going on over at the Cleveland Clinic, and everything that they're doing has a focus on cost reduction and outcome-based. And so those are the kind of questions that I think that the people are expecting, that we as good stewards of the taxpayers' money are going to start asking, and not just sheeting on a sheet, but actually
Absolutely.
following
So to your broader point, the reason why we've created this business intelligence, and I always add analytics, is to have Mr. Hurdick is going to be working with Mr. Wiswerburn, and we're going to have clear metrics and reporting out on the different things that we do.
That's
And I'm
great.
told that there was a dashboard at some point in the county that either.
We did. We had a dashboard
so-
2 years ago, and somehow the car crashed. The dashboard, yeah. So, yes, Ms. Baker.
I just want to agree that I would like to also see those numbers. I think that's important to know, given that this is a new program, what your goal is, what we've accomplished, and then what we have a benchmark for the next year. So I think that's really on point in moving forward and analyzing the program.
Yeah, and Chrissy, on this, when I'm making these requests, it's not for Jack Schron as chair, it's for the committee. So I apologize if it came across as me wanting it personally. I'm getting it for everybody on the committee, and make sure that the full Economic Development Committee gets distribution of anything that comes forward. And make sure that everything we've asked for does come forward. Thanks. Appreciate it. Any other questions, comments? I think it gets us to our 10. Thanks much, and I know that we'll be looking forward to getting the far right column with partners updated with some kind of nomenclature on it. I don't think you need to add another column. I think.
Right, I think you just wanted to identify which one, are we a contributor, where are we a receiver of dollars?
And where maybe it doesn't have, there's no dollars at all involved at all. I mean, I assume that some are gonna be partnerships where they physically are just a cheerleader helping to give us a lead, or asking for a letter of recommendation. I can assume that GCP might give us a lead of a business that wants to come to town. They might also write a letter saying, here's all the good things that you get from being here in Cuyahoga County, and try to convince those people who are not in our county, the wayward ones, to come join us.
Okay.
Thanks.
Just your expectations, want to be clear on terms of getting the partner data is easy to get back to you in pretty short order. You've asked for the loan portfolio spreadsheet. Just want to make sure I have a complete list here. for
Yep,
the
status of the
committee.
loans, where they are, and if it takes 3 weeks, that's fine. I mean, this is not something, we don't have another meeting scheduled. And the only reason we put this one on because we had this, an agenda item. Here's my preference on it, Mr. Carter, is that we're going to get assigned another, we hope, another resolution that needs to be acted upon, just like we did today. And we'll pick that up at the time. It will probably won't be for another 2 weeks at the earliest, and maybe, yeah, next meeting. Let's not create a special meeting for anybody. We all have enough meetings.
Excuse me, I just wanted to mention that the county code for the Department of Development is due in approximately a month, which has all this information, all of our housing loans, all of our ED loans, all original balance, today's balance, interest paid, et cetera. So if we could utilize that report, it's due to OBM in about 30 days.
Okay,
that
we
would be
can,
helpful.
we can do that, but then that doesn't take care of the jobs and the job creation and who logged it in and what the schedules were and where they worked and all that stuff. I don't believe that goes into that report, does it?
It does not.
Yeah, I want the loan to match up with the promises and the promises kept by whoever it was, our borrower. And these are company commitments that they've made to us. And I just noticed, I think it was the city of Solon, some folks had not kept their promises, and you guys called their loans. And that's, I mean, this is not, yes, we want to encourage people to do business here, but it's not designed to be a giveaway program. It's designed that there's both sides of the equation, both sides win, and when we both do what we promised. And I saw that I think Solon called 2 loans within the last 3 or 4 months because people didn't do what they promised. And I'd like to make sure that we're holding our customers, clients in a cooperative relationship, but in a partnership that says you got to do your part too.
Yeah.
And, all right? Yeah, 30 days is fine. We're not trying to create work. We are trying to get information though. Thanks.
Okay, good deal, thank you.
Did anybody sign in for comment in regards to tonight's meeting?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Is there anything else for the committee? No. I'll call the meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.